You wake up every morning with the same weight in your chest, the same questions that have no answers. You scroll through your phone, hoping for distraction, but it only deepens the void. Everything feels hollow, like you're performing in a play where everyone knows their lines, except you. What if I told you that this emptiness you feel isn't a flaw in your character? What if it's the most honest thing about you? Over a century ago, a man saw this coming. He watched the foundations of meaning crumble around him and dared to ask the question everyone was too afraid to voice. What happens to the human soul when God dies? Friedrich Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a prophet of the modern condition. While others clung to the corpse of traditional values, he stared into the abyss of a godless universe and refused to blink. God is dead, he wrote, not as celebration, not as mourning, but as diagnosis. Think about it. For thousands of years, humanity had a script. Good and evil were written in stone. Purpose descended from heaven. Suffering had meaning because eternity awaited. But what happens when that script burns? When the stage lights reveal there's no audience, no director, no grand finale? You know this feeling. It's why Sunday mornings feel empty even in crowded rooms. Why success tastes like ash. Why you can have everything society promises will make you happy and still feel like you're drowning in meaninglessness. The old world had answers. This one has algorithms. Nietzsche saw it first in his own time. The churches still stood, but the faith had already died. People went through the motions, baptisms, prayers, moral proclamations, but it was theater, empty ritual. The soul had already checked out. He called them the last men, comfortable, distracted. They had their little pleasures for the day and their little pleasures for the night. They blinked at existence and called it happiness. Sound familiar? We've perfected the art of the last man. Netflix for the evening, coffee for the morning. Swipe right for connection. Swipe up for validation. We've built a civilization of distractions to avoid the one truth Nietzsche forced us to face. In a godless world, meaning doesn't descend from above. It must be wrenched from the depths of your own being. The modern world is a masterpiece of avoidance. We've created more ways to not think than any civilization before us. Meditation apps to escape the mind. Productivity systems to escape the present. Social media to escape the self. We're so terrified of silence that we pump music into elevators and podcasts into our morning runs. Why? Because in the silence, you might hear it. The truth Nietzsche heard in the mountains of Switzerland. The sound of foundations crumbling. The echo of prayers that no longer reach heaven. But here's where it gets dark. Really dark. Most people, when they glimpse this truth, run. They scramble back to comfortable lies. New Age spirituality, political ideology, the cult of success. Anything to avoid the terrible freedom of creating their own values. Nietzsche had a word for this: nihilism. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, the quiet kind. The kind that smiles at dinner parties and posts motivational quotes while dying inside. Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all, he wrote. We choose the void over the responsibility of becoming. But Nietzsche didn't stop at diagnosis. He went deeper, into territories that would break lesser minds. His own sanity would eventually shatter under the weight of what he discovered, but not before he left us a map. He spoke of the Übermensch, not a master race. That's the perversion history made of his words, but something far more terrifying and beautiful. The human being who creates their own values in the face of cosmic indifference. Imagine it. No God to judge you, no eternal law to follow, no predetermined purpose to fulfill. Just you, existence, and the terrible freedom to decide what it all means. Most people would rather die than carry that weight. And in a sense, they do die. They become shadows, echoes. They let society, technology, ideology, anything, tell them who to be rather than face the abyss of self-creation. But what if you didn't run? What if you stood at the edge of that meaningless void and, instead of jumping or backing away, you built something? This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. Not finding yourself. That implies you're already complete, waiting to be discovered. But creating yourself. Forging yourself in the fire of your own will. He wrote, "We must become those we are. Human beings who are new, unique, incomparable, who give themselves laws, who create themselves." But here's what nobody tells you about self-creation. It's violent, not violence against others. That's the coward's interpretation. Violence against yourself, against every comfortable lie you've told, against every identity you've borrowed, against every meaning you've inherited instead of earned. The sculptor doesn't gently persuade the marble. He strikes. He shatters. He removes everything that isn't the vision. And you are both the sculptor and the stone. Here's the part that breaks people. This path isn't about happiness. It's about something deeper, something that can hold joy and suffering in the same hand without flinching. Nietzsche called it amor fati, love of fate, not resignation, not acceptance, love. To look at your life with all its pain, all its meaninglessness, all its crushing weight, and say, yes, again, eternally. This is the thought experiment that separates the last men from those who dare to become. If a demon appeared to you tonight and said, "This life, exactly as you've lived it, with every moment of pain and every moment of joy, every failure and every triumph, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more," would you curse that demon, or would you call him divine? The last man curses. He needs his suffering to mean something, to lead somewhere, to be redeemed by heaven or history or happiness. But what if suffering doesn't need to be justified? What if it's just the price of intensity, the cost of being fully, violently, unapologetically alive? Imagine having such a powerful relationship with existence that you would choose to live your exact life, every moment of suffering, every disappointment, every loss, infinite times over. Not because it was pleasant, but because you made it yours. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't self-help. This is the most radical act of rebellion against a universe that promises nothing and delivers less. The last men want comfort. The Übermensch wants intensity. The last men fear suffering. The Übermensch transforms it into strength. The last men seek distraction. The Übermensch seeks creation. You feel that emptiness because you're still looking up for meaning, still waiting for permission, still hoping someone, somewhere, will tell you why you're here and what you're supposed to do. But the throne is empty. The stage is dark. The script is blank. And that's not a tragedy. That's your invitation. Let me tell you something about tragedy that Nietzsche understood better than anyone. The Greeks didn't write tragedies to depress themselves. They wrote them to affirm life in all its terrible beauty. The hero doesn't win. The hero suffers, struggles, and often dies. But in that suffering, something magnificent happens. They become more real than the gods themselves. Modern culture has forgotten this. We think tragedy is something to be avoided, therapized, medicated away. We want the movie ending, the redemption arc, the lesson learned. But what if the lesson is that there is no lesson? What if the redemption is refusing to need redemption? What if strength isn't about overcoming suffering, but about developing such a powerful relationship with existence that you can dance with suffering as a partner rather than flee from it as an enemy? Every morning, you wake up with a choice. You can scroll through that phone, seeking the next hit of dopamine to numb the existential weight. You can play along with society's games, accumulating achievements that feel like dust in your hands. You can wait for meaning to find you, or you can pick up the hammer. You can shatter the idols, success, happiness, normalcy that keep you small. You can stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What do I will?" You can stop being lived by life and start living. This isn't about becoming successful. It's about becoming real. It's about looking at the meaningless void where God used to be and saying, "Good, now there's room for me." Nietzsche spent his final years in madness. Some say his philosophy broke him. Maybe it did. Or maybe he saw too clearly what most of us spend our lives avoiding. Maybe the price of that vision was everything. But he left us this: one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. You have that chaos. You feel it every morning. That weight, that emptiness, that gnawing sense that something is deeply wrong with the life you're living. That's not depression. That's your soul recognizing that the old meanings are dead and the new ones haven't been born yet. The question isn't whether you'll suffer. You will. The question is whether you'll suffer as a last man, medicating yourself with distractions until death, or whether you'll suffer as a creator, forging meaning from the raw material of existence itself. The abyss is calling. Will you answer? Or will you just keep scrolling? He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. But here's what Nietzsche knew that changes everything. The why isn't found. It's forged. In fire. In solitude. In the terrible freedom of a godless world where you are both the marble and the sculptor. The question that haunts your mornings isn't a curse. It's the first breath of your becoming.